At Grandma Tai's funeral, a mysterious force pulled me to get married. Amidst the swaying red candles, the deceased grandmother sat in the high hall with a frightened expression on her face. The groom is handsome, but he has extraordinary emerald green vertical pupils. Later on, I found out that it was the pupil of a snake, and he had been waiting for me in the dark for a whole 18 years. Keywords of the novel. Midnight Snake Language with no pop-ups, Midnight Snake Language TXT Complete Collection Download, Midnight Snake Language Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Big Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Big Marriage. The bright and joyful sound filled the entire room, and I was led step by step forward in a daze, dressed in a bright red wedding dress. The sound of joy mixed with the friction of paper. I saw Xin Yang beside me through the gap under the big red cover. Bow in. Xin Yang let out a sharp laugh, making my scalp tingle. At some point, a figure appeared next to me, and a pair of fair and cold hands reached out and tightly grasped my hand. The chill seeping through his body came at the same time, and I felt extremely resistant in my heart, but couldn't break free. Worship heaven and earth, shouted the MC. I was forced to follow the man beside me forward, and my body uncontrollably bowed to him. Bai Gao Tang. My body was forced to turn and face the front of the hall. In the midst of the swaying of the big red veil, I unexpectedly saw the grandmother sitting in the hall. The old man was wearing the clothes he wore when he passed away, and his pale face showed a stiff smile. She sat motionless on the Grand Tutor's chair, her eyes fixed straight ahead, seemingly wishing, but in reality revealing deep fear. The man next to me bent down to bow, and my body involuntarily followed him in the same movement. At the moment of the ceremony, I heard Grandma Tai finally break free from her constraints and shout, "No way." The man next to him let out a cold snort. Grandma Tai suddenly lost her voice, as if she had been choked from afar. Her face was covered in fear, and she trembled all over. I was even more afraid in my heart, but I couldn't control my body and was forced to follow the man step by step. Everything in front of me is very blurry, as if I am dreaming. I sat on a stepping bed for some reason, and the big red veil was suddenly lifted. In the midst of the big red, I finally saw the person who was worshipping me clearly. The man has a handsome face and a skin color that is not as white as a living person. In his phoenix eyes, the green vertical pupils reflect the flickering candlelight. Who is he? Madam, he curled his lips and softly called out to me, his voice deep and magnetic, even with a hint of charm. My heart was pounding uncontrollably, even more afraid. He bent down and sat down next to me, gently caressing my face, supporting my face and gradually moving closer to him. The cold palm has no warmth at all, so cold that it can make one's teeth tremble. As I was about to be kissed by him, my cold hair stood up all over my body at this moment. Unprecedented fear overcame the force that controlled me, and I pushed him away with all my strength. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground came from my ears, and I heard my grandmother ask with concern, "What's wrong with Vivi?" I was blinded by the glaring lights and squinted, barely able to see not only my grandmother but also my parents and other relatives around me. There was mournful music playing inside the room, and a crystal coffin was placed in the center of the main hall. After a while of confusion, I realized that everything just now was just a dream. What I pushed away was not the man, but a chair beside me that made a clanging sound. Tonight is Grandma's funeral, and I fell asleep during the vigil and had such a dream. Did you have a nightmare? My mother asked anxiously, reaching out to touch my forehead. What did you dream of with the sweat on this forehead? I was too unfilial to have such a dream at such a time and even let my grandmother be the witness. I didn't dare to tell the truth. I don't remember. It's okay if you don't remember. Go burn some paper for your grandmother and let her bless you more. Grandma handed me a stack of paper money and gestured for me to go and melt it in front of the incense table. I unconsciously remembered something from my dream again. As I was about to be taken away by that man, Grandma Tai seemed to be strongly opposing this marriage. Grandmother always loved me when she was alive, so she must have been protecting me in her dreams, right? Unfortunately, death cannot bring rebirth. I sighed and walked to the incense table to burn paper for Grandma Tai. I don't know if it's an illusion, but when I pass by the body of Grandma Tai, I always feel that the old man's face is not as peaceful as when he was buried, but rather carries a hint of dream terror. Is that impossible? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Black Snake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Black Snake. When a person dies, there will be some residual gases in their body. Some gases may escape during a state of stillness, causing the appearance of the deceased to be slightly different from when they first passed away. Grandma Tai's appearance has changed, perhaps it is also the same. I walked straight towards the incense table, but suddenly my feet were empty. A loud noise came from inside, and a deep and bottomless pit appeared inside the room. In the center of the main hall, Grandma and I fell straight down. My body plummeted rapidly, and the screams of my parents and others came in. They tried to catch me, but they all threw themselves in the air. The incense table fell down together and hit my forehead, causing intense pain. I only felt black in front of me and lost consciousness. When I woke up, my eyes were pitch black and I couldn't see anything. I can feel myself wrapped in something cold, which is very strange. It feels as hard as a stone to the touch, but with just a little pressure, I can feel the softness beneath this layer of hardness. I couldn't help but press a few more times and suddenly noticed that the layer of things that wrapped around me moved, as if there was life. I was surprised to find that this thing was constantly wriggling, as if trying to wrap me tighter. I suddenly felt uneasy and wanted to escape as soon as I got up. However, it was too dark here, and I fell down without taking 2 steps. I thought it would hurt a lot from falling, but I didn't expect the layer of thing that was wrapped around me to hold on to me. In the darkness, a man's deep and helpless voice came from. Be careful. It's the voice of the man in my dream. Am I dreaming again? Did you continue the dream from earlier? I was a bit confused, thinking of my phone in my pocket. I quickly took it out to light it up, only to see a scene that was enough to suffocate me. In the pitch-black cave, a huge black snake stood before me, occupying almost all the space inside the cave. The massive snake body spiraled layer by layer into a concentric circle, and those soft and hard things coexisted were nothing but the body of this black snake, and I was wrapped in the center by this black snake. My huge black head was held high in the air, and my emerald green pupils were like a full moon hanging in the sky, reflecting my frightened face. Suddenly, the black snake lowered its head and approached me. I couldn't even escape when I saw the black snake spitting out crimson snake venom at me. I'm dead set. However, the black snake did not swallow me in one gulp. The crimson snake gently licked the wound on my forehead, and the pain that had been lingering on my forehead since I was hit by the incense table miraculously disappeared. I was so careless. The man's voice came again. The crimson snake glided over my forehead and lightly touched my cheek, before the black snake raised its head again and looked down at me. I was so scared that I couldn't even scream, trying my best to tell myself that it was just a dream and I would wake up fine. At this moment, a sound came from the cave above my head, and I actually heard my parents' voices. Hurry up. My daughter is still down there. You can't dig with a shovel. Don't hurt Vivi. The stones on the top of the cave became loose, and a faint light came from the cracks. The black snake followed the sound and looked up at me, curling up my waist with its tail and placing me against a wall. The huge snake body transformed into a black mist, and in front of me, it transformed into a handsome and abundant man, who turned out to be the man of my dream. I was stunned and said, "You." He curled his lips, lifted my chin, and inexplicably kissed me. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Is entangled. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 is entangled. His lips were as cold as his body. I pushed him hard, but he grabbed my hand. The emerald green vertical pupils tightened slightly, and I could clearly feel his displeasure towards my move, afraid that he would turn into a snake and swallow me in one bite the next second. My body couldn't help trembling because I was too scared. He seemed stunned for a moment and let go of me. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked in a deep voice. "I'm so scared." I was so scared that I couldn't speak for a moment. He chuckled lightly, as if mocking himself, and caught a glimpse of the increasing amount of falling debris above his head. He whispered, "Stand here and don't move." Before I could say anything more, he kissed the back of my hand and disappeared. At the same time, the rocks on the top of the cave fell one after another, smashing deep pits on the ground and stirring up dust on the ground. Only I am safe here, not even a bit of dust has drifted over. From the top of the cave, my mother screamed with a hoarse voice, "Be gentle. What if you collapse and hit Vivi? Vivi. Can you hear Mom talking?" The cave was opened, and in the bright sky, I saw my mother's anxious face at the entrance. I quickly spoke out, "Mom. I'm here." My mother was overjoyed and quickly called for someone to pull me up. She worried and asked me if I was injured, and occasionally scolded my father, thinking that their ancestral house was not built in the right place. There was actually such a big pit under the well-built house. I sat under the bright sun for a while to calm down my chaotic thoughts. 2 days ago, we received a call from our grandmother in our hometown and learned that our 99-year-old grandmother had passed away. My parents brought me back from town to arrange a funeral for the elderly family. On the night of the vigil, I dreamt that I was getting married to someone, and the witness was still a grandmother. After waking up from my dream, I went to burn paper money for Grandma Tai, but encountered a sinking in my ancestral house. Both myself and the crystal coffin containing Grandma Tai's body fell into a deep pit. My parents were so anxious that they called for someone to come and rescue me overnight. Only then did they remove the accumulated gravel on top of them the next afternoon and rescue me. After seeing that I was fine, my mother returned to the deep pit and continued to search for Grandma Tai's body with my father. According to the rescue team, the depth of the collapse was over 100 meters, and it was a miracle that I was safely rescued. The cave is full of gravel, and even normal walking can easily cause injuries, let alone falling from such a high place. How could I be unscathed? I couldn't help but think of the big black snake that could turn into a human. Did he save me? But this is not in line with common sense. Is there still a snake demon in this world? Just as I was lost in thought, my grandmother walked over with concern and whispered to me, "Vivi, what did you see below?" I saw a very large snake. This was too strange, and I was afraid that no one would believe it when I said it, but just then, Grandma felt like she had been greatly stimulated, her body trembling with fear, and her water cup in her hand fell to the ground. I quickly helped her pick up the water glass and said, "Grandma, are you okay?" Grandma ignored the water glass and tightly grasped my hand. She immediately led me outside the courtyard and said, "Vivi, hurry up and don't come back in the future. But Grandma Tai's funeral is not over yet, and don't worry about this matter, you don't even need to come back if I die in the future. Hurry up and leave." Grandma was so strong that she forcibly took me out several meters until she ran into someone at the gate of the yard before stopping. The person who came is Grandma Zhang, a famous goddess in the village. She usually helps people move graves and observe feng shui, and the villagers all respect her. Grandma Zhang glanced at me and sighed, "It's useless. She's already entangled, and even if she runs to the horizon, she can't escape." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Your grandmother sold you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Your grandmother sold you. I was confused and said, "Grandma, what does it mean that I'm being entangled?" "You were caught by a snake." Zhang Guixiang. "It's none of your business." Grandma Zhang shouted as she spoke up. She glared fiercely at Grandma Zhang and pulled me to continue walking outside. "Vivi, don't listen to her nonsense, hurry up and leave." I thought of the big black snake that could turn into a human and couldn't help but ask, "Grandma, are you trying to say that I was entangled by a snake?" You dare to ask. Grandma was so anxious that she wanted to cover my mouth and said to Grandma Zhang, "Zhang Guixiang, don't lie. My granddaughter is a pure and innocent young girl, she won't be related to that kind of thing." Grandma Zhang sneered, "Your granddaughter can't make the decision about this. If you don't believe it, take a look at what's on her forehead." I thought of the forehead that had been licked by snake venom in the cave, and reached out to touch it. There was nothing unusual. Grandma, however, turned pale and looked at me with disbelief. How could? I took out my phone to look in the mirror and found a black snake mark on my forehead at some point. The imprint is only the size of a nail cap, and it was previously blocked by my hair before no one noticed it. I tried to erase this mark, but even though I rubbed my skin red, the mark remained unchanged. Grandma stared at me in a daze for a while, her eyes turning red. She turned her back to wipe away her tears and softened her tone, saying to Grandma Zhang, "Guixiang, I apologize for what happened just now. Please save my granddaughter." "How can we save her?" Granny Zhang asked in response. "You made your own sins. Who can save her? Anyway, those things have nothing to do with my granddaughter. She is innocent. Guixiang, you save her, save our family. I miss you for the rest of your life." My grandmother wanted to be strong all her life, but now she lowered her figure even lower. The more I listened, the more confused I became. "Grandma, what exactly happened?" "Don't ask." Grandma gave me a silent look and begged Grandma Zhang, "Guixiang, as long as you can help me, I will agree to anything you want." Grandma Zhang looked at me and didn't say anything. Grandma realized something and gestured for me to wait on the side, then took Grandma Zhang to the other side to whisper. The two of them were talking and occasionally peeking at me, making me feel uncomfortable all over. I took a few steps there, but after being discovered by my grandmother, I was forced to retreat to my original place. I could only vaguely hear my grandmother saying words like, "Your grandson," or, "My granddaughter," and I didn't know what the two old ladies were up to. However, compared to this matter, I still care more about the black snake mark on my forehead. When I fell into the deep pit, I was certain that I had been hit on my forehead by the incense table. There are no scars at all now. Did that big black snake help me heal it? Is this black snake mark the mark of the great black snake healing? Just as I was thinking, I suddenly saw the black snake mark on the phone screen move. I was startled and gathered up the courage to take a closer look. I was sure it wasn't my own days, and the black snake's mark had indeed changed. The small black snake had gone from crawling diagonally to hovering and sitting upright. Is this thing alive? The more I thought about it, the more scared I became. I couldn't help but shout to my grandmother, "Grandma, the snake is moving." Grandma was taken aback and quickly pulled Grandma Zhang over, saying, "Okay, I promised you, you help me quickly." Grandma Zhang gave me a deep glance and took out a yellow talisman from her pocket. At this moment, I heard the voice of the man transformed by Black Snake. "Don't believe them, your grandmother sold you." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Fools. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Fools, avoid the yellow talisman, the man said again. Grandma and the others probably couldn't hear the man's voice. Grandma Zhang was so fast that before I could react, the yellow talisman in her hand had already pressed against my forehead. The intense pain came as if someone wanted to remove the piece of flesh from my forehead. I instinctively wanted to tear off the yellow talisman, but my grandmother was already prepared and even held down my hand. She works in the field all year round, with much stronger strength than me. I can't break free at all, so I can only beg her to let go and say, "Grandma, it hurts so much, you tear off the talisman." Grandma restrained my hands even harder and said, "Don't move. Just drive away the evil." But it was really painful. Just as I was struggling desperately, I suddenly felt something coming out of my forehead. An invisible force swept through me, and the two old ladies were shaken away by this force, retreating in succession. Grandma Zhang spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Through the nearby window, I saw a black snake swimming out of my forehead and heading straight towards my grandmother. My intuition tells me that if I were touched by a black snake, my grandmother would definitely die. Without much thought, I rushed over to block my grandmother. The figure of the black snake stopped just as it was about to collide with me, and I turned around to meet the emerald green vertical pupils of the black snake. The penetrating snake pupils revealed emotions that I couldn't understand, like helplessness or sighs. Before I could delve deeper, Grandma Zhang took out another yellow talisman and pasted it on Black Snake's body. The figure of the black snake suddenly dissipated, turning into black mist and disappearing. Only a man's two-word sigh came to my ear. Stupid. I suddenly felt that he must have left with some disappointment. As the black snake disappeared, the mark on my forehead also disappeared. Grandma took a deep breath and stepped forward to help Grandma Zhang, saying, "Are you okay? I'll give you this favor, at least 10 years off my life." Grandma Zhang rubbed off the bloodstain from the corner of her mouth in anger and looked up and down at me unconsciously. It seems that only by looking at me so much can she barely balance her feelings of being seriously injured. Grandma greeted a cousin and asked him to take Grandma Zhang to the hospital in town. Before leaving, Grandma Zhang's gaze was almost fixed on me, reminding her grandmother, "Don't forget what you promised me." "I know." Grandma half pushed and half sent Grandma Zhang away. When she came back, she saw me still looking at my phone in the mirror, pondering the marks on my forehead, and sighed, "Don't look, that snake is already dead." I was surprised and said, "Dead? That big black snake looks so powerful." With just a few strokes from Grandma Zhang, it died. Grandma explained while packing her things, "Zhang Guixiang has some real skills. That snake probably came up with the idea of harming people just after learning some fur. Fortunately, it's just an ordinary black snake, I thought it was." She was halfway through, realizing something, and her words abruptly stopped. "Mudun, there really are monsters." I couldn't help but ask, "What did you think it was?" "It's nothing, you should go home today and don't stay in the village." As I spoke, my grandmother had already packed my things and handed me my backpack, leading me out of the village. "Didn't you say that snake was already dead?" "It's nothing to do with that snake." Grandma interrupted me, hesitating for a while. She looked at the door and made sure no one was here before whispering to me, "Vivi, you must remember what I'm going to say next. Don't tell anyone, including your parents and me, which university you're going to choose. I'll ask your dad to give you more money later, and you shouldn't come back after you finish college. If you see the villagers, especially the Zhang family, outside in the future, stay away." My grandmother rarely speaks to me in such a serious tone, and I am extremely puzzled. "Why?" "Don't ask the reason," Grandma frowned. I suddenly remembered what the snake had said earlier and asked nervously, "Did you sell me?" Grandma was extremely shocked and looked at me in disbelief. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Live Paper Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Live Paper Man. From childhood to adulthood, my grandmother has always loved me, whether it's lucky money or other good things, she is not stingy. The way my grandmother is anxiously asking me to leave now is really strange. I can't think of the reason, so I can only try to ask. At this moment, my grandmother's overly shocked gaze made me feel guilty, and I felt that this question was too unfilial. I whispered, "I was joking." Grandma gave me a blank glance and said, "It's not a joke. Hurry up and leave now. You can set off now and get home before dark. Grandma Tai's body has not been found yet, so the funeral has to be paused. My parents don't allow me to go into the pit again, and I can't help here either. And in 2 days, it's time to fill out my college application for the college entrance examination. The signal in the village is not good, and my parents are worried that it will affect my college education. They also think it would be better for me to go back to town first. I took the money given by my dad and left with my phone in hand. Before leaving, my grandmother specifically reminded me, "Vivi, on the way back, no matter who calls out to you, don't stop." I am so old now, of course I understand the principle of not talking to strangers and signal my grandmother to rest assured. There is a direct bus from the village to the town, but it takes 20 minutes to walk from my grandmother's house to the station. The scenery in the countryside is good, and this little road is nothing. I carried my bag on the road and walked out of the village. Along the way, I couldn't help but think about what had just happened. The look in the eyes of that big black snake before it disappeared left a deep impression on people. Did it really die? I was lost in thought when someone suddenly patted me on the shoulder, startled me, and turned my head to see that it was Zhao Man teasing me. Zhao Man was born in the same year and month as me, which can be considered as my childhood. Every year when I go back to the village, she comes to see me to play. I haven't met my grandmother yet because I'm busy dealing with her funeral. "Vivi, when did you come back?" Zhao Man stiffly withdrew his hand and spoke in a strange voice. "I came back the day before yesterday. My great-grandmother passed away." I briefly explained and saw that Zhao Man had put on heavy makeup today, feeling a bit uncomfortable. "Are you learning makeup?" Zhao Man tugged at the corner of his mouth and smiled. "Yes, do you want to learn? I'll teach you." I am indeed interested in makeup, but grandmother has just passed away, so it is obviously not the time to learn this. Moreover, Zhao Man's makeup is too thick. The whole face is painted white. The two groups of powder blusher and lipstick on her cheeks are too red. She also uses black eyeshadow. In my dream, when I married, those papery makeup was better than her. Realizing this, a chill surged from the soles of my feet, and I couldn't help but shiver and secretly glanced at Zhao Man's feet. The slender and twisted shadow unfolded at her feet, overlapping with mine. It is said that ghosts have no shadow. Zhao Man has a shadow, so he should still be a living person. However, given my previous experience, I think it's better to go home first. I'm going home, so I won't learn makeup for now. Let's go, goodbye. What are you doing at my house? Zhao Man asked. Zhao Man's words seemed like a gust of wind blowing away the fog in front of me, and I realized that I was standing at her doorstep. This is impossible. Going out of the village and going to Zhao Man's house are two completely opposite directions. Even if I close my eyes, I won't go wrong. How could I come to Zhao Man's house? This is really strange. I quickly wanted to leave, but the sky started pouring rain, instantly turning me into a drowned rat. "Vivi, hurry inside and sit down for a while." Zhao Man's mother walked out of the room and, without hesitation, pulled me inside with Zhao Man. In the center of the main room hung a large red letter of happiness, and a row of paper figures stood against the wall. I couldn't help but think of my eerie dream. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Great Black Snake Becomes the Great Green Snake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Great Black Snake Becomes the Great Green Snake. If we don't do casual work at home, there won't be paper people. But if it's a funeral, it's impossible to arrange the wedding together. Putting the wedding and funeral together is too surreal, and I just want to leave quickly. "Auntie, Zhao Man, my family has something to do, let's go first." "It's up to you, the final say." Ma Zhao Man changed her previous enthusiasm, glared at me viciously, turned to the room and shouted, "Come here quickly. Here we go. Quickly catch her." Zhao Man's father ran out of the room holding a bundle of hemp rope. Seeing me running away, he quickly reminded Zhao Man's mother to catch someone. I was dragged into the house by Zhao Man's parents and tied to a back chair just as I ran out. The rope was tied very tightly, and I couldn't break free. I was both scared and confused, saying, "Why are you tying me up? My parents are not big bosses and can't give you much money. Zhao Man's mother gave me a white glance, ignored me, and asked Zhao Man in fear and unwillingness, "Is that enough?" Zhao Man seemed like a puppet, his movements stiff as he looked at me and said, "Etiquette is necessary." Zhao Manma rolled her eyes again and said, "I understand. I'll send the person to the Snake Lord Temple now. You have to keep your word." Zhao Man didn't speak anymore and walked straight into the heavy rain. I don't know if the heavy rain blurred my vision, but Zhao Man's walking figure became more and more distorted, and in the end, it seemed like he had turned into a snake. "How can we send people over with such heavy rain?" Zhao Man's father asked. "That's their business, we're only responsible for preparing the people and the sedan chair." Zhao Manma instructed her husband to go get the sedan chair, and she took out a big red hood from the inner room and walked up to me. "Vivi, don't blame Auntie, Auntie can't do anything about it either. I'm scared when I see this kind of red cap now. What are you guys doing? It's not like I'm getting married, is it?" At this point, Auntie won't hide it from you. This year was originally the day when Zhao Man married Snake Lord, but Snake Lord didn't accept it and even called for you by name. "Look, you just saw that Zhao Man is no longer my daughter, but an envoy of Snake Lord. For the sake of our entire Panlong village, we can only wrongly treat you." Zhao Man's mother covered my head with a red cap, but I shook my head to the death and shook it off. "What's Snake Lord? How come I've never heard of these before?" "You don't know it's normal. The people in your village are all upper class, how could they know about these shameful things in your village?" Zhao Manma sneered and resented. Panlong village is divided into upper village and lower village. Our family lives at the head of upper village, while Zhao Man's family lives at the end of lower village. I always thought this was a village divided based on the geographical location of both sides. According to Zhao Man's mother, what else is inside this? But at this moment, I don't have time to pursue these matters and just want to run away quickly. "Auntie, I'm already married, Snake Lord definitely won't accept a second marriage." Zhao Manma only treated me as talking nonsense and said, "Cut, the little girl still wants to deceive me. As a student, how could you get married? Even if you agree, your parents won't agree." She saw that I was being dishonest, took out a pill from the drawer, crushed it and dissolved it in water, and together with Zhao Man's father, she poured it down for me. "Vivi, don't say your aunt doesn't hurt you. Take this medicine, then you go to the Snake Lord Temple obediently. Otherwise, you will anger the Snake Lord. Don't say you didn't have good fruit to eat, your parents and our entire Panlong village will suffer." The bowl of water with added medicine left me with no strength at all, watching them carry me into a paper sedan chair. Somehow, a welcoming song sounded around me. Through the gap between the red canopy and the sedan curtain, I saw 4 colorful snakes crawling in from outside the door, using their bodies to roll up the sedan chair's lifting bars. Surprisingly, they lifted the sedan chair and walked towards the outside. "I'm getting married again, the big black snake that I married in my dream before, now it has to become a big green snake, right?" End of this chapter. Chapter 8. How are you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. How are you? It was raining heavily outside, but this paper sedan chair not only supported the weight of a living person, but also didn't get wet at all in the pouring rain. The cheerful welcome song made my brain ache. The whole village was quiet except for the eerie sound of rain, and there was no one to come out and watch the excitement, as if the whole village had died. The sedan chair swayed forward, and through the back and forth swinging curtains, I could occasionally see the large flower snake lifting the sedan chair. These colorful snakes, at first glance, looked like venomous snakes. I wonder what breed that big black snake was before. After an unknown amount of time, the sedan chair was carried into a room, probably the Snake Lord Temple mentioned by Zhao Manma. A rustling sound came from outside the sedan chair, indicating the departure of the large flower snakes carrying the sedan chair. Then I heard the sound of the door closing. The sky is gradually getting dark, and the room is eerily quiet. I leaned against the sedan chair, unable to move, and could only observe the outside through a slight gap in the curtain. Suddenly, I saw a shadow moving on the ground. Based on the orientation calculation, this shadow should belong to the deity statue in the temple. I have visited the village a few times and have never heard of any Snake Lord temple here. I only know that there is a Dragon King temple that enshrines a Dragon King who has been worshipped by Panlong village for generations. The shadows on the ground seem to have horns, and it was only then that I realized this was the Dragon King statue in the Dragon King temple in Panlong village. Unlike the Dragon King deities enshrined in other temples, which are all dragon-headed human figures, the deities enshrined in Panlong village are directly the true body of the Dragon King. And the appearance of the statue is not soaring in the clouds, but hovering and standing. The first time I saw that statue, I felt that it didn't seem like a Dragon King, but rather more like a snake. The deity statue has dragon horns and 4 claws, which are said to have all the characteristics that dragons should have. I thought it might be because the craftsman who made the statue was not skilled enough to make the statue of the Dragon King look like a snake. However, when I heard Zhao Man's mother call this place the Snake Lord Temple today, I had a bold idea in my heart. Perhaps the original worship here was snakes, just using the honorific title of dragon. At this moment, the shadow on the ground grew larger in a circle, and all the features of the horns and 4 claws on the head disappeared. The shadow turned into a long strip, like the body of a coiled snake spreading out. The fruits and candlesticks enshrined on the incense table fell to the ground with a rustling sound. My scalp tingled, and the next second, the sedan curtain was lifted, and a huge snake head peeked in. The yellow-spotted snake spat out a snake message at me and said to me, "He, it's not bad, it's indeed an innate holy body. As long as I sleep with you, I can cultivate into a human form. What is this snake, thicker than my waist, talking nonsense?" I desperately wanted to escape, but there was nothing I could do. The yellow-spotted snake approached me with a smile, and my forehead suddenly became hot. The next second, the yellow-spotted snake seemed to be bounced away by an invisible force and collided fiercely with the wall. The paper sedan chair was simultaneously broken by this force, and only the area where I was sitting remained intact. This is indeed the Dragon King temple that I have been to before, and the statue in the center of the memorial is missing. The yellow-spotted snake hissed out its snake venom and stood up from the ground, feeling extremely angry. "I didn't expect you had something self-defense on you. Take it out yourself, and I'll spare you from dying. Do you think I'm stupid? Isn't taking out the amulet enough to make you die? Besides, even my phone was taken away by Zhao Man's parents. Apart from this outfit, there is nothing to defend myself from." The yellow-spotted snake saw me motionless and sneered, "Don't think I can't do anything about it." A layer of light shone all over its body and it approached me again. The area where the black snake mark had once appeared on the forehead was once again scorching hot, but this invisible force collided with the yellow-spotted snake and was offset by its radiance. The yellow-spotted snake kept approaching, and I could almost smell its foul odor. Just as its snake venom was about to touch my cheek, a black shadow rose from under my feet. The yellow-spotted snake was shaken back by the momentum brought by the black shadow and fell to the ground. It spat out a large mouthful of blood, and the broken spine, mixed with blood and foam, rushed out of the skin, making the back of the person feel cold. The yellow-spotted snake fell to the ground and looked incredulously at the big black snake that surrounded me, with a look even more terrifying than mine. "How could it be you?" End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The brain is greener than the eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The brain is greener than the eyes. The black snake looked down at the yellow-spotted snake from a high position, its emerald-green pupils flickering with a terrifying chill. His figure gradually became more solid, but compared to the snake body in my underground cave before, it was much smaller, probably due to the limited space of the Snake Lord Temple. The feeling of being entangled by a snake is really frightening. I don't know if it's because of excessive fear or because the medicine has expired. My body regained some strength and quickly slipped away when neither of the snakes cared for me. However, I was surrounded by a black snake in the center, and to escape, I had to climb over his massive snake body. I had just climbed on his scales for less than 2 steps when the big black snake caught me. He flicked his tail, and my feet slipped before falling back into his confinement. The huge head of the black snake turned back to look at me, and the chill in its emerald green pupils dissipated, with a hint of mockery, as if mocking my reckless escape. He approached me without bringing the foul odor of a yellow spotted snake, but with a hint of coldness and a faint yet unnamed fragrance. The crimson snake lightly licked my cheek, and the big black snake finally straightened up with satisfaction. I dare not move. The place that the big black snake licked just now seems to be the place where the yellow spotted snake almost touched. This black snake has such a large body, but its mind is quite small. The yellow spotted snake lay on one side, its spine broken and unable to leave, so painful that it dared not hiss. Noticing the gaze of the big black snake once again falling on itself, the yellow spotted snake begged for mercy repeatedly. "Sir, spare your life. I thought this temple would not have anyone come to occupy the magpie's nest, but I didn't expect it to be your mansion. It's my obsession, please spare me. Please." As he spoke, the yellow spotted snake kowtowed and smashed its huge triangular head onto the ground, turning all the bluestone bricks in the temple into powder. I heard the black snake's disdain. "Who cares about this temple?" The yellow spotted snake's kowtow paused, and it stole a glance at me. It realized something and immediately kowtowed even harder. It was the little one who was blind that hit your person. The little one was wrong. It's late. The voice of the black snake was devoid of emotion, but I could clearly feel a force belonging to him surging in the room. The body of the yellow spotted snake curled up together seemed to be forcibly straightened by a pair of invisible hands, and I could clearly hear the sound of its joints breaking. Subsequently, a large hole appeared 7 inches away from the yellow spotted snake, and blood flowed uncontrollably. A bright red beating heart was pulled out of it and fell to the ground. The yellow spotted snake howled incessantly, but it was of no use as it was stripped of its skin by this invisible force. The crimson snake blood splattered all over the house, leaving only me and the black snake clean and tidy. The strong smell of blood filled the entire room, almost making people dizzy. This was the most bloody and brutal scene I have ever seen in the past 18 years. The black snake stood in place, emitting a sparkling green light from its erect pupils, as if this was not enough to vent its anger. What is he angry about? Did you realize that due to this yellow spotted snake, it almost caused his head to be even greener than his eyes? I was lost in thought when I saw the black snake turning its head to look at me. His snake body gradually becomes smaller and stops when the adult arms are thicker. He lightly hooked his tail around my waist, lightly tapped my lower abdomen twice, and then extended it through the hem of his clothes. Sleeping slot, what does he want? The new book is immature, please take good care of it. We are looking for collection, monthly tickets, and recommendation tickets. Thank you, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Men in Dreams. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Men in Dreams. The snake's tail is very cold, like eternal ice, gradually crawling down my lower abdomen to my heart. I regained my senses from my confusion, and with a sudden inspiration, I quickly dodged the tail that was trying to catch my underwear. The black snake's tail paused slightly in the air, and the black snake tilted its head, as if surprised. I don't understand what he wants to do, but being stared at by a snake is really scary. My intuition tells me that if I stay, something terrible will happen. I instinctively run away. The heavy rain outside hasn't stopped yet, and the crackling sound of rain covers my footsteps. I ran out for a long distance in one breath before gathering the courage to look back. Under the pitch-black night, only the room behind emitted the flickering light of red candles. That is indeed the Dragon King temple that I have seen before. The blood-red wooden door is wide open, and the black snake stands in the center, staring at me motionless. My figure even looks a bit lonely. The heavy rain quickly blurred my vision. When I wiped the water off my face and looked into the temple again, the figure of the black snake had disappeared, only the flickering candlelight reflected on the flesh and blood-blurred body of the yellow-spotted snake. I dare not stay any longer, I just want to leave here quickly. The Dragon King temple is located in the deepest part of the village, and there are usually few people. If it weren't for Zhao Man bringing me over to watch the excitement earlier, I wouldn't have known there was such a place in the village. I am not familiar with this place, and the heavy rain makes it difficult to distinguish the direction. I can't even see the lights of the distant village, so I can only run in the direction of my ancestral house as I remember it. However, as the trees around me grew denser, I gradually realized that I might have run in the wrong direction and ended up running to the back mountain. That is a forbidden area in the village. When we were young, the older generation always scared us that there were cannibal wolves in the back mountain and no one was allowed to approach. I want to go back and find my way home, but I'm afraid of encountering that black snake. The heavy rain turned me into a drenched chicken, and the chill hit me in waves, leaving only my forehead burning hot. My brain was drowsy, my vision became even more blurred, and my barely recovered strength gradually disappeared. I knew I must have had a fever. Continuing forward only leads to a dead end. After thinking for a moment, I decided to go back. The black snake was missing from the temple just now. It may have left and may not be able to be encountered by me. Moreover, it's already dark now and I haven't called my parents to report my safety. They must be anxious, maybe they are looking for me outside, and maybe they can still meet me. With this belief in my heart, I gritted my teeth and walked back. However, the heavy rain made the soil in the mountains loosen, and I unconsciously walked to the edge of the cliff. I had just taken a few steps when I suddenly slipped and fell down the slope along the rolling debris. The back mountain is steep, so if I fall like this, I will die. The high fever made it impossible for me to stay awake. I wonder if it was an illusion. In the pouring rain, I saw a black figure hugging me. That is the man in my dream, with emerald green eyes like sparkling gemstones, unforgettable to behold. His cold hand lightly caressed my face, wiping away the rain from my face, and he lowered his head and gently kissed me. My consciousness fluctuated, and my brain was in chaos, unable to distinguish between reality and dreams. In a daze, I saw the man holding me transform into a huge black snake. The black snake enveloped me layer by layer with its massive body, shielding me from wind and rain with its own body. Even his cold snake body warmed up at this moment, gradually warming my shivering body from the high fever. The new book is immature, please take good care of it. We are looking for collection, monthly tickets, and recommendation tickets. Thank you. End of this chapter.